Hello and welcome back to Dukascopy TV. Today in the studio I'm joined by another representative from the UBIS University Geneva, Mr. Elias Ashkar. Elias, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I understand that you've spent many years in the Gulf region. How is the evolution of these emerging economies in today's economic environment?
Well, we all know that what happened in 2008 was a major downturn in the global economy. And that inevitably affected the whole world, the whole global economy. But within that sphere, you have more economies were more severely affected or less severely affected than others. I would say that the Gulf countries, they were the least affected, or they were not affected as severely. And there are reasons for this. These countries, they are very, very lucky in the sense that they have incredible resources, gas and oil. And these countries, they have incredible wealth in the sense that if you look, for example, at a country like Abu Dhabi, they have almost close to $1 trillion in terms of sovereign wealth fund. So these economies are least affected or affected the least among what's happening around the world. So if I were to talk to an investor, be it an individual or a company, I would say, when you look at what's happening around, when everything is relative, then you would definitely find that, you know what, it's still, doing business in these markets is still a good thing to do. Maybe not the way it was up to 2008, but it's still, relatively speaking, a very attractive market. So what I would think that these countries are equipped to ride the wave and still do very well. In the same time, when you look at these markets, you see that their population growth is probably among the highest in the world. Per capita income is probably among the highest in the world. So far, politically, they're stable. And political stability it means prosperity. So even though there have been hiccups here and there, but overall, on the whole, I think these economies are fairly strong and stable and a good place to do business.
You mentioned these hiccups. Are the events that the Arab world is facing changing the immediate future, do you think?
There's no question about that. This is a certainty. When I look at the Arab world, you have two kind of groups. You have the GCC countries. So far, they're fairly stable, doing well. They have good income, they're stable, they have good education, good medical care, and so on. The other group, I felt that the youth were really upset and angry and disappointed. They need jobs, they need employment, they need healthcare, they need education and everything. Some of these leaders who were leading these countries were there for like 30, 40 years. And they eliminated any type of diversity on the political scene. They crushed any opposition, whether it's an individual or a party. So suddenly now they disappeared from the scene. And what happened? They created a big vacuum. So until there is a new and refined system in place functioning properly, it's going to take time. And that transition period in the short term to the midterm is going to be lots of bumps and many question marks along the way. For an international investor, it does not necessarily mean that you don't do business in these markets. It is a matter of what do you do to really understand the level of risk involved? How do you design your strategies and plan, taking that risk factor into consideration? Because you still have in that troubled part, probably about 200 million people, so it's a significant market.
Now, the UBIS University enrolls students from over 40 different countries. How does it incorporate that idea of global understanding into its program?
Well, first of all, look at Geneva. Geneva is an international destination. UBIS, it stands for University of Business and International Studies. That's what it is about. So the programs are international programs. So when you take all these, you factor all these in, the type of diploma, the type of programs, the type of textbooks. But in addition to that, okay, the textbooks are shared by any institution. They're not, but I think the key factor is the type of faculty that any university, including UBIS, hires. You know, when I look at, for example, my situation with the kind of students I had, it is very, very seldom when I had a student in my class who she or he comes from a country where I have not done business or I have not visited and so on. So what happens here, this is the value added over and above the textbook. This is part of the program, i.e. is not who's teaching the program, who's not teaching the book. Basically, it's what kind of experience these people have. And that, I think, is hugely attractive to these international students. So these kind of things, as I said, add value by having the education not only from a textbook but from a real life experience that is relevant to these guys, what countries they come from. And with this, what happens, you end up sharing in class stories from different countries, different cultures and so on. I think that is very, very enriching.
That's all we've got time for. Thank you so much for speaking with us today.
You're welcome.
Coming up today on Dukascopy TV, I'll be talking to Hervé Petra from Credit Suisse. Goodbye for now.